The Daily Code Snippet. Today we will discuss sticky positioning. When the position property of an element is set to sticky, it is positioned relative to the user's scroll position. A sticky element alternates between relative positioning and fixed positioning, so until the user has scrolled to the position of the element, it will be in a relative position. Once the user scrolls to the element, the position of the element becomes fixed to the user's scroll position. It basically becomes sticky and fixes to the user as the user scrolls. Once the offset is no longer met, the element becomes relatively positioned again and stops being fixed to the user's scrolling position. Specify at least one property, top, right, bottom, or left, for sticky positioning to work. Here is the HTML code for section 2 in our demonstration. We see that it would be the last circle element. And here is the CSS. So in this example, we are looking at a circle element with a medium gray color. This image shows that our sticky element starts out in a relative position because the absolute and fixed elements were taken out of normal flow. It sits in the third position to the right of the relatively positioned element that is offset down to the right behind the sticky element. As the browser is scrolled further down, the fixed element travels with us, and when we get to the position of the sticky element, it also begins to scroll and behave like the fixed element. Once we hit a point where we have scrolled past section 2, the sticky element stops following with us as we continue to scroll. This video shows the sticky element in action. Sticky elements will not work in Internet Explorer, and for Safari you may need to add the WebKit prefix for it to be recognized. Just like a fixed element, a sticky element can cause accessibility issues because it affects performance. Just as a fixed element needs to be redrawn, a sticky element has to be redrawn once activated as it travels as you scroll. So again, if you add a will change property set to scroll position to the CSS, this helps warn the browser that this element changes position so it can optimize itself to improve performance and accessibility. Just like HTML, we can add comments in our CSS. It is important to get into the habit of commenting your code. Any text placed within a /* and an * will not be read by your browser. It is a way to take notes inside your code. This is very useful when you're learning and when you're collaborating with others. If you have a question, put your question, your notes, and whatever you're concerned about in that comment, and then it will not be read by the browser, but it's there to help you and anyone you may ask to understand what's going on with your code. With CSS, comments are often added to keep your CSS organized. It is good to keep related CSS items grouped together, and you can add a CSS comment to add a label to that section. For example, you may want to place all your CSS rules that relate to typography in one area of your CSS. So when you need to make a change, it is easy to find the rules you have made for particular elements easy. Sometimes people even create a table of contents to outline how their style sheet is broken into sections and organized. Again, the purpose is to stay organized and make it easier to find a particular CSS rule when you go back to your style sheet file to make a change. Here is an example of how commenting can make your code organized. This is an example of a CSS style sheet from a WordPress theme. You can see that the commenting is used to give background information on the theme itself. Then below, you can see a table of contents. Here we focus on the table of contents. By creating sections like this, it would be easy to use the search function of a code editor to find a particular section of code so that you can adjust the style. Zooming in further, we can see how the CSS is being divided. We can see areas for typography, navigation, accessibility, and the content. Presented by Designers Learn Code.